Welcome to Richland Community Library's Drawing for Beginners with Miss Carrie. This month we're going to make some cakes. We're going to make a cupcake and a layered cake. So what I have with me today is, of course, my number 2 pencil, my little smudger or shader, and I also have with me a kneaded eraser, which means it is pliable and you can shape it into whatever shape you want. It's not necessary to have this, you can just have a regular eraser. But I'll show you some cool stuff to do, or that you can do with this one, as it lifts your pencil marks off pretty nice when you're shading. If you shaded too much, it lifts it right off. So I'm going to put that down, stop playing with it, and we're going to get started. So with a layered cake, you're going to want to make a very light line, all very straight all the way down, as straight as you can get it. And you're going to make a T or a perpendicular line at the bottom. So that's the first part, and maybe that's the first tier of our cake. And maybe you want to make a really big tower. So let's make another mark a little bit smaller right there, and maybe another one just even smaller, and then the top one, well, we'll make that the same so we can go from there. So for the cake, we are going to start out with the top tier, because we can see the top of the cake. So I just want you to make an oval right around that line and bring your marks down just like we're making a cylinder. And then right at that next mark, we're gonna curve it out at the bottom to complete that cylinder. Now we need to make the next tier, okay? So it comes out to about there. Let's see here. We go straight up from those. Now we're going to make another oval, and this one you can go right through your cake, but just make it really light. We want to make sure that that layer sits really nice on top of that layer. So we're making that oval, and then when we go to erase, we can just erase that middle part, and it looks like it's sitting right on top. So let's bring that down. Alright, and this comes out. We'll curve it around just to make sure we're giving it a nice curve. Alright, so that next bottom layer, we're going to start right around here. And again, we're making that oval around that intersection. And it's going to be just a little bigger than that last oval we made. And again, remember those lines aren't permanent in there. And I think, let's see, there we go. And then bring it down. Remember, your sketches aren't permanent. We're going to erase those lines. Alright, so now we have our cake, but maybe we want a plate on it. So maybe we make one more oval. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, let's take our eraser and erase all those marks. And a kneaded eraser you can use just like a regular one. It does the same job, but you can make it as small as you need it, and it works just the same. Works a little bit different with shading, as we can just lift off some of our shading if we need to. Now, what is your favorite part about a cake? Do you like the decorations and the frosting? Do you like the colors? This is a chance for you to get out your colored pencils if you want. Or if you want to paint it, you can paint it as well. But think about how cakes are decorated. And let's get started. Well, this is the month of Valentine's Day, so maybe we're going to decorate it with some hearts or some flowers. There we go. All right, well, maybe we want some flowers at the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of make circles where I want the flowers to be. And then I'm going to take my smaller eraser here and erase all of those harsh lines that go through my flowers. Alright, so let's think about how a flower is made. I'm going to start with this one that's facing us. For roses that are like typically on cakes, I start with just a small center and I go back and forth like a yin and a yang. So I'll put one mark there, another mark there, and I just keep going around my flower, making some parts a little bit thicker if I want, just with the edge of my pencil. Now you can do this with colored pencils as well, and it'll turn out really sweet. So there's one flower. Now depending on your perspective, this flower is going to have some petals that go down. And again, it's just the same back and forth pattern. But they're frosting flowers, so they don't have to look super realistic. Start on that one. Now normally cakes have some sort of frosting decoration that goes around the edges of your cake. So let's give that a shot as well. So I'm going to take my kneaded eraser. I made it quite small because I'm just going to gently lift my line off, but just enough so that I can still see where it belongs. And then we're going to make some frosting. So we're just going to go around the frosting area, and I'm just making little ridges. Now we're going to shade just a little bit in here and take our shading tool. Just like that, and maybe shade just a little bit of our frosting just to give it some depth, just like that. And then we're going to have our cylinder shaded. So remember, it has kind of a dark line, it has a line of lighter and it gets kind of darker as we go over, especially when we get to the flower area. It's going to be a little bit shaded under there. Alright, so let's take our shading tool. And make it shaded right under our flowers. So I have a place that's not shading the same way, so I'm just taking my kneaded eraser and lifting some of that shading off. We'll see if it can blend a little bit better now. There you go. That's a better. That's a little better. There we go. Now around the bottom, there's usually frosting too. So if you colored it in too much, you can always take your eraser and go around. And if you shaded too much for your roses, you can always pop them back out. With a little bit of a darker line. There we go. So let's make some frosting that goes around. And again, if it's too dark, just take your eraser in there and lighten it up. Now you could choose to add more flowers, or you could choose to just All right, there's our cake. Let's now make a cupcake, shall we? So a cupcake has an oval, and it kind of goes down at an angle for that cup. And remember, we're just sketching at the moment, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now normally we don't see the back edge of the cupcake, so we're going to go ahead and erase that line. All right, now we need to add the frosting. So the frosting can come up, and again can come up on this side. Maybe we want a cherry at the top, so make a circle. We're going to make a little line just like that, and a stem that comes out. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We are just sketching it out. So sometimes the frosting on a cupcake goes at a spiral. So let's kind of make that happen. Just like that. I'm going to connect my little ways just like that. Sometimes the frosting goes over the edge of the cupcake. So let's do that. And then most of the time our cupcake papers have this accordion look to it. So we are going to bring our lines up and down till we get over to the edge again. And then I'm going to show you how to shade that in a way that makes it look like that accordion style. So let's start with the top first. So remember we need at least a lighter area for our sphere. And we're going to make it nice and smooth. Nice and smooth with a darker strip right here. There we go. And having it light right there. And we're going to just darken this area just a little bit because it does dimple down with a cherry. There we go. Just like so. Maybe define your edges just a little bit more. Just like so. Now we're going to make that frosting. And let's see. Kind of making just a squiggly diagonal line to give it that layered look. And then we're going to want it to be a little bit darker with our swirl layers, and maybe even darken up our lines here. They don't have to be perfectly shaded, because frosting hardly ever goes on super smooth anyway. And we're going to use our smudger, our blending tool. Alright, so we're going to start at the top here. And we're just going to kind of smudge it in. Now our cherry makes kind of a shadow, so I want you to make that little area just a little bit darker right next to the cherry. But don't forget to leave a little bit of light on the cherry there so you can define it. There we go. There we have it. All right. There we go. Now let's define it a little bit more with our pencil. There we have it. Now let's shade our bottom part of our cupcake to make it look like an accordion. And how you do that, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can shade every other one in and smooth it out, or you can use lines to do that as well. And I'm going to turn it to the side here so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to make lines that go one direction and it's going to go the same direction on every other one. And you could still use your blending tool on these lines, but just very lightly. So you could do just that. You can blend it a little more, or you can go the opposite direction with your lines, but make fewer on that side so it's not as dark. Just like so. And then maybe make this slightly darker, or smudge it. And you can even make sure that you maybe go in and out at the bottom of your cupcake. Alright, let's shade underneath the frosting, and we'll shade underneath our cupcake. And because we have the light coming in over there, we are going to just take our kneaded eraser and just lighten up those little areas over there. And we will finish off our shadow. And there we have it. I hope you enjoyed making cake with me this month. Next month we are going to be drawing some cars. I would love to see how you decorated your cupcake and your cake. So go ahead and email that to me at the email address down there below, and I'll see you again next month.